Okay, so in this next session, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a bit of SEO myth busting, and again, trying to keep it a bit different to some of those other articles that you might see online. So just focusing on a couple of things. Number one, people only really click on the organic results. True or false? The answer is false. There is some thinking that most people click through the ads, and in some senses that is true. But the organic results do get quite beyond the first result, which you can see in this diagram, gets around on average 26% of the clicks. I mean, it changes a lot depending on what else is on the page and things like that. And then it progressively gets smaller after that. There's ads that often come up on the page. There's map listings, as we've talked about. There's often a knowledge graph or a carousel. There's all these other things that take away from those organic positions, and this is even more prominent on mobile. We said earlier that on mobile the ads actually push the organic listings potentially off the screen altogether, so you've got to scroll down. And then we've got a bit more information here. This is a study done by a company called Mediative in 2017, which great study. Can definitely check it out in the notes section on this video. But it goes into detail on not just on desktop but on mobile. Lots of different use cases when ads are featured, when ads aren't there, map listings, different things, and how it affects heat mapping and click through. So yeah, really interesting study. Definitely a resounding no in this one. So it definitely pays to consider share of SERP, which we'll cover a little bit later. Second one, more likes on your Facebook page improves your Google rank position. True or false? This is a bit of a curly one because the answer, I would say straight out, is false in terms of a direct result. And I think that's the real myth here, that more likes on your Facebook page directly factors into Google's algorithm, that it actually impacts your rankings directly. And on that point, it's definitely a false. There are other knock-on effects of social. So you could say have a lot of engaged followers that are following links from your social pages or Facebook back to your website. They're then factors then like click-through rate, dwell time, engagement on site, that sort of thing does factor in, and those things can have an effect on your rankings. So this one is a bit of a mixed one, but I would say that the traditional answer is false, but it can have a bit of an indirect effect on your rankings as well. Number 3, you can rank on page 1 of Google without having any of the search keywords on the page. True or false? The answer for this one is actually true. This is a fairly big change from traditional SEO. I guess it's not that recently now, but it's a very good example of semantic search, actually. That since some of the major updates, algorithm updates from Google, specifically RankBrain and Hummingbird to some extent as well, semantic keywords, semantic versions of those have become more important. I mean, there are. This is a study that was recently done in 2017 by SEMRush, which found that of the websites in their database, 18% of the domains ranking for high volume keywords don't actually have the keyword in the body at all. So we've actually seen that on some clients as well. There was an interesting case around some copyrighted words where we couldn't use that word on the page at all for trademark reasons, but the sites were still ranking for those words just based on context and based on semantic relevance. So it does happen. Next one, adding more pages to your website is a sure way to improve SEO. True or false? This can depend on the type of pages. Overall, I'm going to say false, in that it's not a sure way to improve SEO. I mean, again, this is a bit of an old SEO technique where companies would typically add a whole heap of low value, thin content pages, very focused on long tail keywords, typically around area type long tail keywords to try and rank for those. But the answer is really no. I mean, if those pages have great content and they're quite targeted and well thought out and they have value in their own right, I mean, this answer might be a bit different, but it's not a sure way to improve SEO. And Google has actually even said quite recently, as late 2017, John Mueller said that quality over quantity will almost win every time. Because you have to remember that Google ranks pages, not websites, primarily. Next one, keywords are dead. True or false? This one's a little bit unfair because I know there was a previous question about keywords ranking. I would argue though that keywords are not dead, so I would say false. In the sense, yes, as we said earlier, you can rank for a particular keyword or phrase, even though it's not on the page. However, the core really of any good SEO or content strategy does still, in our opinion, begin with keyword research. There are some people that would probably dispute this and say that the key is great content, and great content, in my opinion, is definitely a part of that. But I think the strongest SEO strategies still do start with some solid grounding in keyword research. So I think I'm going to say that one's a false. Next one, the user's experience on your website can affect your Google ranking. True or false? This one is a true. And for those of you that have been here from the start, we did talk about things like pogo sticking, we talked about bounce rate, dwell time, we talked about engagement, page load time, if the site's very slow, especially on mobile, if it's not very well optimized for mobile, since the mobile get an algorithm update of 2015, all these things contribute to the user experience of a site, and yes, they almost certainly can affect your Google ranking if those things are not up to scratch. High bounce rate is always a bad thing. True or false? This one we're going to say is false. Again, it was covered earlier, those of you that caught it, but I mean, overall, yes, you do want to have a good, you do want to aim for a low bounce rate on your site, especially on your home page. But when you start thinking about the site overall and get down to specific pages, there are things like, your contact page, if you don't have a form there that links to a thank you page, if it's just contact details and a phone number, that sort of thing, that's probably going to have a high bounce rate because people are going there with the intent of looking for your contact details. They may call you, click out straight away. Blog pages can sometimes have a very high bounce rate. Certain bottom of the funnel pages, obviously thank you pages and things like that. And just to clarify again and reiterate, a bounce is classed as when someone has visited the page and then clicked straight out. So there's definitely cases where it's not a bad thing. Generally, and especially on things like your homepage, you would expect a lower bounce rate, sort of in the vicinity of 30 to 40% or something like that, or maybe even lower, is something to aim for. So, and that's the end of the section.